Hi everyone, this is Rohit from Lifestyle Mastery, and today I'm excited to have Miguel Fernandez, who's the CEO of Capchase. Capchase is powering the growth of digital recurring economy and has raised more than $125 million from Ivy League investors like Bling Capital, Caffeinated Capital, Box Group, and ONEVC. Miguel has done his MBA from Harvard Business School. Welcome to the show, Miguel.
Thank you so much, Rohit. Good to be here.
Awesome. So, you've had an interesting journey. Before I talk about Capchase, you've had, you worked in companies like Blink, and you built your own brands like Heyday brand, which was an e-tailer, where you were selling apparel from up and coming fashion brands and Vibao. What was your experience before you went to Harvard Business School and you started Capchase?
Yeah. So when I first started, I studied engineering. I did mechanical engineering and nuclear engineering in Madrid and Munich. And, the reason why I did that is that I was always curious about understanding how things work, and how to build things, right? So mechanical engineering was perfect for that. And then I started working in consulting. I did a couple of years at Monitor Deloitte doing banking, TMT, and retail. And I felt that I was learning a lot of things, about how to work, but I also felt that I needed to build, and I felt that it's to build. So I set up two companies that you mentioned, Weibo and Heyday. They're both pretty early stage. We achieved a few, 1,000 euros. We lost a little bit of money in the first one. We made a little bit of money in the second one, but nothing much. We just learned a lot of lessons. And then, I decided that I really wanted to work in tech. So I joined this pre-revenue company in Spain called Blink, and I was the first person in sales. And I didn't know that I was joining a sales team. I thought I was joining like a strategy team. And when I got there the first day, they're like, "Okay, so here's your phone, and you have to call these people." And I was like, "What?" I've never thought that it was gonna be like that. But anyways, I just did it, and it worked out well. And then I built and led sales and customer success, and then moved to London to open up the local office, build a team, enter the market, essentially lead the internationalization of GeoBlink there. So, those 3 years were really important for us because I'm saying us because two of my co-founders were also at GeoBlink, but they were running the product team. They were really important because we experimented, most of the pains that we're trying to solve right now, right? So we saw how complex it was to manage cash in a fast-growing business, and how the different ways that our customers would pay us would impact the cash availability of the business, the growth rates, the funding, timing, and even the valuation, right? So that was very important. We learned a lot, and all those pains, we just didn't really think about how to solve them. We just took them for granted. But then, we left all at the same time, each to do an MBA. I was going to HBS, Guli was going to Berkeley, and then Luis was going to INSEAD. And, we had always talked about launching something, but we didn't really have an idea. We didn't really have the mindset or the mind space to look for things. So then when we all left to do our MBAs, we decided to be a little bit more deliberate about what we were going to do and the ideas that we were going to research. So basically, we saw, okay, what do we know and what do we like? So we knew B2B SaaS. We really liked fintech. So as soon as landed on HBS in August 2019, sorry, we started looking for new ideas. And then we had the realization moment in January 2020 when the first idea we had at Capchase was, hey, there has to be a way in which tech companies can offer flexible payment terms, but get all the cash up front. And with that realization moment, then in January, we started, to speak with a bunch of founders, and ended up honing up on the idea.
Got it. And Capchase helps SaaS companies finance the growth of operations. But when it comes to other RPS companies, they're trying to solve for e-commerce companies. But do you think there's going to be enough traction for B2B SaaS companies to grow without taking equity capital, especially when it comes to e-commerce companies? They look into inventory management, but for SaaS companies, what are the sorts of growth options? Why do SaaS companies need growth capital, and how does Capchase help them solve it?
So let's see. Um, E-commerce is a different world, and there are companies that are usually very cash, like the cash levels are very, very low, and they are, have to finance the inventory, they have to finance the marketing, and if they stop investing into acquisition or into financing, like they just go flat, right? So there are players in the market that do that, but that model is just not useful for SaaS because of of the price. It's like incredibly expensive and then very short term, and SaaS by nature is just like different. So I think that the SaaS market is huge, and not just for financing. Like we're not just a financing company. We don't want to do just financing. Why we started Capchase in the first place is because we saw that these SaaS companies are really underbanked, right? So you have amazing companies with millions of revenue, millions of revenue, current revenue, per year, um, growing extremely fast, and then they are really underbanked. Not in the sense that they can't really access these financial products, that bank offers, but they just don't use them, right? So you look at the average $10 million ARR business, like SaaS business, great business, and you look at the average $10 million annual revenue SMB, and the SMB is using tens of financial products, and the SaaS company is using three. Is using credit card, checkings account, and maybe like a money market account where they park their VC money, right? So the reason why they're not using any of these financial products is, I think, after thousands of conversations, I think it's primarily for three reasons, right? One is the products are not designed for them. So the financial products are like fit all, like any SaaS company will fit into the SMB category, right? So the financial products are not adapted to them. Two, because it's very easy to do everything with VC money, because the VC money is there. Like you have 20 million in the bank account, or two or three or 100 or whatever. And then three is because financial operations, like they require time to be executed, right? And founders don't have time. They don't want to spend time there. They just want to focus on building a great product and then distributing and selling a great product, right? So due to those three reasons, these SaaS companies are not using financial products. So what we want to do at Capchase is we want to, on the first hand, develop the financial products that these companies need to be more effective, grow faster, be more in control, be less exposed to mistakes, or like hiccups. And then second, put them on autopilot so that founders don't need to, spend time doing those things, and everything can just happen automatically, right? So you can just see what's going on. So what we think about, what we think as a company that we solve for these businesses is four things. We are putting revenues on autopilot. We're putting expenses on autopilot. We're putting treasury on autopilot, and then financial operations. Those are the four things that comprise finance in a tech company. So why we're doing revenue financing is because it is the most expensive thing that these founders have in other priorities, right? So then we started with financing. That's great. We're working with thousands of companies now because we're really solving a very, very deep pain. And the market is huge. We haven't even scratched the surface, right? That's the first thing. And then we went into expenses with expense financing, which is like a buy now, pay later for these companies. That's great as well, solving a lot of problems as well, which we can talk about later. Next, we're getting into treasury in the next month, and also on financial operations, right? So our goal is not to be a financing company, is to solve much more, solve all of these financial needs of these companies and put them on autopilot.
Got it. And do you think debt financing can work for B2C SaaS companies as well, or do you focus more on B2B SaaS companies only?
Sure, for sure. You can have both, right? Like it is a combination of metrics. How fast they're growing, how efficient they are, how long do customers stay around for, all that stuff. But it can definitely work with B2C, and we have a ton of customers in the B2C space.
Got it. And you talked about metrics. What metrics are important for you to process loans to startup founders, and how do you make sure that the process is faster than other companies?
Yeah, we have the fastest process in the market, right? Like a customer just comes, connects the data, accounting, banking, and revenue data, and then in 24 hours they know how much money they're going to be able to tap into for the following 2 years, right? So then that helps them to plan ahead, and just focus on growing the business. And the metrics that we look, there are hundreds of metrics, right? So we couldn't get them all in a call, but how fast they're growing, how efficient it is, their churn, if they grow 10%, how fast do the expenses grow? So a lot of different things that we do, and then we crunch them all together, and then we just like put it together into a score that we call cap score, and that determines how much money they can take.
Correct. And I had a conversation with Andrew from Clay Company, who mentioned that 50 to 80% of ad spends are getting into Facebook and Google ads, especially when it comes to e-commerce. But also when it comes to SaaS companies, a lot of money is getting into social media marketing and ad spending there. Why is that happening? And what is the solution? Do you think there are going to be other distribution channels which are going to be as important as Google and Facebook going forward?
For sure, especially more. Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, they're important. Out of home is also important for B2B. Like we have some real examples that did really well. But then, like I think in B2B SaaS, a lot of the money goes towards sales, right? Like you have a sales team, which is like your acquisition team in an e-commerce company. You have a sales team that is very expensive. It has lots of moving parts, and like SDRs, they have account executives, they have customer success managers, right? And then they have this unique thing, which is the bonus, that they get a bonus every month for closing companies that would be paying for the following years, right? So financing that bonus, instead of making like a big lump sum of cash, spreading it over the following months, is very important. And then also, I think that the main difference is not so long about where they use the money, so much about where they use the money, sorry, but also, hey, like these companies, they're burning money, right? So they are spending money. So then you have two choices. Either you spend the money that the VCs gave you, or your own money, in which case, like, it's like you hamper the growth a lot. Or, if you are accruing revenues, which the revenues are recurring in nature, right? So they're gonna come month after month, year after year, right? So if you just have those revenues there and you're just waiting for them to come, then naturally you're gonna burn money. So if you can bring part of those revenues, every month to fund your current operations, you can just go ahead at full speed without spending VC money.
Got it. No, I absolutely agree. If the SaaS founder is able to solve his problems of cash crunch, then he can definitely go fast. And you mentioned about your BNPL product, which is Capchase Expense Financing, where you look at managing larger expenses for founders. What are the repayment terms, and how do you ensure that that interest rates is it cheaper than other financing resources which a founder can have?
100%, yeah. So basically, the payment terms are: imagine that you are going to pay $100,000 to a lawyer, right, or $50,000 in sales commissions, or a big, marketing campaign, or a big software tool, right? So you have to spend a ton of money and you don't want to. So then with Capchase, what you do is Capchase pays for you, and then you pay installments to Capchase, right? So then for 2 or 3%, like fee for a year, sometimes a little bit more depending on the company, you can just smooth out completely all your like cash outflows. Yeah, and this is like at least 2 or 3 times better than the next best alternative in terms of pricing. And then the other alternatives, they only float your expenses for like 2 or 3 months, right? So it's like dramatically superior products with Capchase.
Right. So you're saying that there's flexible payment terms over a period of 3 months to 12 months, but the interest rate is also lower. It's like are the interest rates 2% or 3%, or is it 2 or 3% lower than what is being offered in the market?
No, it's way lower. It's like 50% lower than whatever is in the market, right? So, depending on the company, like of course, like some, let's say, the really solid companies will pay less, of course, right? But yeah, you can get rates that it would be impossible to get anywhere else, and also the speed, right? Like you can do this for every single purchase that you want. You don't have to go and talk to anybody, and spend a ton of time, because with Capchase everything's automated.
Correct. And in one of the interviews, you mentioned that one of the main competitors is venture debt. Why do you think venture debt is the main competitor? Don't you think venture capital is whom you're going to compete?
Well, I mean, venture capital, sure, but like if we can only, let's say, complement or substitute venture capital when the companies have revenue, right? That's when we can work together. Before, if you don't have an idea, or if you want to attract, like specific people to your board to help you build a company, then VC is a valid alternative. What we're saying is, like, instead of going and raising a seed round, a Series A, a Series B, a Series C, a D, F, and then IPO, right? You can just raise a seed, then make that go for long, then raise an A, and that be it, right? So the majority of our customers are VC backed to some degree,
Okay.
which allow them to keep much more of the company moving forward. And then why we say eventually it's our biggest competitor? It's just like founders are still like not used to using any other source of financing besides VC money. So then venture debt has been around for a few years. It's just like it's not a good product, right? Like so we every time that we go against venture debt, the funder chooses us because it's just way better for them and for the business and for the future and for everything. But still, like venture debt is, I don't know if it's like a $20 billion industry in the US. And I mean, and we are just getting started, right? Like we're in the hundreds of millions.
All right. And I realized that companies like Capchase and other revenue-based financing companies are an alternative to venture capital. But what was the media and the VC response when you started to build this company?
So what was the people response?
Yeah, what did venture capitalists think about revenue-based financing company, or what Capchase was trying to build? Because it does compete with the VC industry, and I was wondering what was the VC response to your sort of a financing model?
They let's see. So for a VC that's invested in a company,
Right.
it's great. It's the best thing that they could get because the companies are getting extra money. They're getting a lot of visibility and the unit economics on the metrics, and on what to tap into to grow faster. And they're not getting diluted, right? So VCs get diluted as much as founders, right? Like they have to keep pouring money into every subsequent round of a company they've backed just to keep their stake. So imagine if they, instead of doing that, they could not get diluted and then pour that money into other companies, right? So, or, pour the money to buy more stake, not to just keep the position. So they're really happy. And once every time we start working with a company, their VCs hear about us and then they get very excited and they recommend us to other companies, right? So that more of the portfolio companies can use it. I think that this becomes, more of a competitor to VCs in later rounds, when the companies have enough revenue to not need to raise again. So then VCs chasing new deals is just more complex, right? More complicated. But yeah, like they're generally very happy about it.
Got it. And I wanted to understand about the unit economics. How do you make money? What are the different revenue channels for Capchase?
So we basically advance at a discount. So if a company takes, $1 million, has $3 million in ARR, takes $1 million up front, then we would give them between 93 to 99% of that, right? And then they would pay us 100%, right? So then we make money in that delta.
Right.
Yeah. And then that is for now the main source. We're making a little bit of money on payments, and on software and so on for the new products that we're launching. But for now, that's the main source.
Got it. And I also understand that Capchase is a remote company. Now, how has a remote changed the dynamics of how Capchase runs? Because you've been into UK, US, and Spain market. How do you work remotely with your team?
Yeah, I mean, right now we have people, I think 11 countries and so on. We have people from 20 nationalities, and we're just 60 in the team. So it's already like a very global team. we had to start in remote, right? We started in the pandemic, so everything was in remote. And in fact, like I didn't meet a lot of the people in person until 5 months in, right?
Right.
Then we just like met in Spain, and that's super fun. So right now, like what we do is we have headquarters in New York, we have an office in Madrid, we
Right.
have a small office in Barcelona, and a small office in San Francisco. So we are trying to find team members that are the best in the fields wherever they are. And then when we start to see more than 4 or 5 people in the same city, we just set up some space so they can interact and be together, right? And now, for example, we are opening office in London in the next 15 days, because we have a team of 6 people there right now. So there are some people that are like just not in places where we have hubs. So then we have to be very, very mindful of including them in every conversation as if they were there always, right? So regular catch-ups, regular on-sites, regular off-sites, and just um, get people to interact more, even across the screen.
Correct. And I wanted to understand about the raise that you've recently done couple of months back. What advice would you give to founders on how do they structure the raise, considering that it has been a big raise for you in the last couple of months?
Yeah, so I think that as companies get traction, raising just gets easier, right? But for getting started, I mean, we have been companies to not raise, right? But we had to raise because we needed to support the financing to give to our customers, right? So, anyways, for the pre-seed round, for the seed round, when all you have is like an idea and like maybe some early stage customers, I think that the funders should really, really focus on the vision, right? Like that people at the pre-seed stage invest because of the founders and because of the vision. And the vision determines the market, right? The total addressable market. So it is really important that the vision and the messaging of the vision is very clear and is very exciting. Right? Like at the pre-seed stage, they're gonna give you a ton of money to try and figure out something. Odds are that it won't end up being, what you thought it was, like that grand vision, but the vision is gonna get them excited. And the team is what's gonna make them be assured that if the first original vision doesn't materialize, that they will figure out something else, that will also work out.
Correct. And as a CEO, you're always looking at talent, great talent coming into your company, but also making sure that you always have cash in the bank. But should founders always be raising? Or do you think as a CEO you should always look at raising all the time?
100% no. They should not be. They should always be building, right? That's where the value is created. So there's
Right.
one very big difference between commercial success and fundraising success. We've seen a ton of companies raising a ton of money and crashing, right? So funders should be building, but sometimes they need to fundraise because otherwise, like, they don't have enough money to run the business, right? So that's what we're trying to precisely avoid. We want to help founders just focus on building, and selling, and all that annoying, time spent fundraising, speaking with 100 people, telling everybody about your metrics. That should be avoided and done automatically, on autopilot. So I would say only raise when you need to and avoid it as much as you can, because raising means selling your company and at a very, very, very high cost, right? A company that sells, I don't know, 10% at 10 million valuation, that million that you're getting now is going to be worth 100 million in the company, which is like significant traction, right? So it can become very, very expensive.
Correct. And I understand that you started the company at the time of COVID, but how did COVID change the world of fundraising, especially that you would have raised money over the Zoom calls, but what was the experience all about?
It was insane. I hadn't raised money before, before COVID, but I'm thinking about it like during COVID, you could just have 12 investor meetings in a day, right? That's 6 hours, half an hour calls, one after another. And that was possible. In the past, you have to fly out to SF and
Right.
meet one VC and go for lunch and do whatever, right? So the speed has accelerated a lot, and the frequency also a lot. You don't have to spend so much time just traveling, to do it. On the other hand, I think what has been great is that at least in the US and Europe and so on, there were like a lot of incentives or like loans that the government made to companies to diminish the impact of COVID. So that meant that a lot of founders saw that there are other ways of funding the company that's not VC money,
Right.
right? So then that sparked a change of mindset, like, oh, I don't just have to use VC money to grow. There's other stuff, it can be the government, it can be, like a Capchase, giving money so that I can put this to work and not have to dilute, myself or spend a lot of time fundraising. So that was a huge change.
Correct. And I want to talk about talent acquisition. What framework did Capchase use to hire the best remote talent? Especially, you mentioned you've been into 11 countries. So, what structure and framework did you use there?
I think it's a combination of our values, and what we're trying to look for in people, and then the composition of each team. So let me start with the values. Basically, we have 5 values, and we want people to embody them, and we hire looking at those values, and then we promote people looking at those values. We put them in the spotlight when we acknowledge, great work. And those values are 5, yes before no. Want people that, whose default answer is, yeah, let's go do it. Let's go figure it out. Also people, that have a builder's attitude. So people enjoy going 0 to 1 with all the chaos that entails. Then people that, are very, very smart, but also humble, right? So intellectual humility, we call it. So, people that know that they don't have all the answers and there's a lot to learn and they do it. Then the 4th one would be work hard and work smart. So we're doing something that's new, nobody's done it. And we're working really hard, but like we also want people to work smart in the same direction, right? Like be more effective. And then last of all would be disagree and commit. So we want people to raise their voice, have their opinions, different backgrounds, different, experiences and everything. And they should voice them out and protect them and try to get them through. But if the final decision ends up being something else, then just commit and execute, right? And that's working really well. We love it. And everybody in the team embodies that and is very excited about those values. Then on the other hand, the team structure, how we're thinking about it is we want people that are functional experts, right? They know a lot about what they need to do. And then we're matching them with people that are young, but extremely smart as well, right? So then you're matching the experience and the structure and the frameworks and the strategy of more experienced people with the hunger, the drive, and the raw power of younger, more junior people, and that's working really well.
Yeah, no, I love all the values you talked about because I could say that the values which a CEO has it gets important to everyone, and that's the vision of the CEO. And I wanted to understand how do you look at optimizing product management in remote teams? Do you work directly with the product teams on this, or are they remotely based?
Yeah, so they are remotely based. We have a PM in Amsterdam, another one in Sevilla, a couple in Madrid, a couple here. Right? So it is kind of distributed. I think that what we've done, and again, like this can change, right? Like, as the company changes, but all we've done is, we have put PMs in specific domains, so for example, one just focus on revenues, one just focus on expenses, one just focus on treasury, another on finance ops, right? So they learn everything about that, and they know everybody in the space, and they talk with customers, and they always have like this, field of operations that they just need to be the best at, right? And then how we pair them with engineers. Engineers are more like functional experts, right? So then for example, we have a team of payments, a team of, UX. So then the engineers can rotate from PM to PM depending on the project and the initiative, but the PMs just get like really, really, really good at their domains.
Correct. And I quickly want to do the top three. What's your favorite business book?
Uh, I think that one of my favorite business books is The Everything Store about Amazon.
Yeah.
The reason why, for two things. One is because they made, an internal product, an internal tool to manage the warehouses into one of the biggest businesses in the world. So AWS internally was their software to run the warehouses. And now, AWS, you know what it is, right? The biggest cloud company in the world.
Right.
And two, because Bezos is maniacally focused on finding flywheels in the organization, right? So the original flywheel, which was, hey, lower prices, get more customers, get purchasing power, lower prices. Again, like that flywheel, that was like, mind. Well, that was super inspiring to me when I first read it, and it's something that we're trying to do constantly here, right? Like try to find our flywheels so that we can accelerate the business and try to avoid the reverse flywheels, which slow down the business. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think Everything is Stored is also one of my favorite books. I'll put that in the show notes.
Amazing.
And yeah, and
Yeah.
if you could go back time when you started working on Capchase, I know it's been just couple of years, but what is the one thing you would have focused on or done anything differently?
Wow. Yeah. So I think it's mostly around hiring people, right? So we've gone from 0 to 60 something people in a year, right? So that's pretty fast growth.
Right.
But there's some key profiles that took us very long to find because we're trying to be a little bit too perfectionist, right? So we're trying to find somebody that would, cross every box or check every box. And then when one of our investors said, like, guys, like, you have to hire for strengths. Like if you find somebody that's really good at this box, even if they're not that amazing at the three other box, just get them, and then you complement that with other people, in the future. So that was almost like a mind shift. So I wish that we had started with that from the very beginning.
Correct. And do you have any favorite online tools, example, Gmail, Slack, Zoom?
Uh, yeah. I maybe a little bit unconventional, right? But I love this tool called Strava for sports tracking. It is it's just great. It's so addictive. You can see. Have you ever used it?
I haven't, but this is the second time in a week a guest has talked about Strava, so I'll definitely
No
would
way.
want to use. Yeah.
Great. If you go running or cycling, whatever, Strava is just gonna map wherever you go, and then it's going to rank you against other people that did the same path. So then it's very it like gets up my competitive juices, because I want to go faster, longer, do it better than myself and than everybody else, of course.
Yeah, no,
Very
no,
cool.
absolutely. I spoke to Patrick Fisher, who's the general partner in Novia Fund, and he talked about Strava. So I'm definitely going to use that product and put that in the show notes. Yeah, Miguel, what is the best way people can reach out to you and know more about Capchase?
Yeah, I would love to. I mean, I'm very accessible. People can just text me at my email, Miguel@capchase.com, and I'd love to help anybody out there.
Got it. We'll put that in the show notes. Miguel, thank you so much for taking our time speaking to us. I really enjoyed my conversation with you.
Of course, thank you so much. It's been a great chat. Speak soon.